in slow motion, we're just floating in slow, so ocean free, we're just floating it all, so wild.
Hello everyone, Shannon Miller here from Cleaning Business Life, and today we're going to talk about why people really book deep cleanings. And it really is more about than just getting a clean house. They're usually going through a huge life transition. Something has usually triggered an event where they are required to have a deep cleaning. So when you have a deep cleaning, there's a lot that goes into it. There's an emotional toll. Not only is it a monetary thing, there's an expectation that you're going to reset the home to where it needs to be so that it's livable again. What I have seen this last year is I've seen an uptick in the last 3 years with MRSA cleanings. I'm the only person in my area that's actually certified to do this. It's a biohazard cleaning, so depending on the size of the room that needs to be decontaminated, depends on the price, right? So, and there are people who've attempted to do it. I'm like, I hope that you didn't crawl back in your car or that you ate lunch with your hazmat suit on because it's contagious. That's a life-altering event. Sometimes mom and dad dies, and mom is really good at fudging it on the phone, and then you walk in, you're like, oh my goodness, right? Like the painting. So there are life events that usually happen. Sometimes they are behind and no one visits mom and dad for a while, or you have someone who has I don't want to say a medical episode, but they have some sort of mental thing that has happened that has caused them to not participate in life as much as they could. And there's a lot, we won't get into the philosophy behind why, who did what. Most of the time as cleaners, we just get to see the aftermath, right? How many times have we all seen the videos of, it's usually trash and laundry, right? You come in and there's just DoorDash, fast food restaurants, convenience everywhere, Coca-Cola cans, Mountain Dew bottles filled with pee, floors ruined. I just watched a video, I believe I shared it today, and it was two gentlemen who were living by themselves, and they didn't have electricity, but they had running water, but they were on a well. So I'm like, that doesn't add up. So maybe the person who was doing the video didn't get it all right. But in any case, there was a rescuer there, and the property was pretty bad, in dire straits. And they were both 88 years old, two brothers. One of the brothers had to be hospitalized, came in with a relative. I don't know if it was a son or daughter. So they took him away. So they left this other gentleman who was also 88 years old to kind of fend for himself. And you can hear it's clearly not a cleaner. She was like, ew, that's gross. And he goes, oh, those are just dead cockroaches. We'll just dump them out here. I don't even know if he dumped the water inside the house, outside the house, but my eyes were this big. So that would be a life-altering event. And typically, regular household cleaners are not going to do a cleaning like what I just described. That's why we have the dirt scale, right? From a 1 to 10, 11 is like, woo, we've got to recheck this. 15 is like, oh my God, you cannot be left here alone. It's just, then there's 20, 25s. I've seen everything, but we're starting to see the more convenience we have, and this is just my opinion. You can tell me to stick it where the sun doesn't shine. It's just an observation, because remember, I like to watch for patterns. So what I have seen, and this has nothing to do with Amazon, but it's a consequence of having Amazon, is we have all these people shopping and consuming, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just watching the patterns. And they don't purge anything when they consume. They're not purging each time. They're just consuming and then distributing it right there on the floor. And it becomes this whole dynamic of what to do, where to do it, how to do it, how do I get this person help? So there are a lot of emotional tolls that come with doing a deep cleaning. And as a matter of fact, we had one the other day, and she was living with her older husband, and her older husband, he was 96, 97. And she proceeded we were gossiping because we both lived in town a long time. And she proceeded to tell me about her husband. And we were talking about his Tesla and how the technology has made it easier, if you can afford it, to get around without having to be dependent on extra family members, because your Tesla is self-driving. You just verbally tell it where you want to go. It plugs it into the map and it drives you over to your location. You don't have to do anything, right? So, which is great if you're in your 90s and your license has been taken away, right? Not everyone has that luxury, but I believe in the near future that we'll see more of that. But getting things caught up, you can only physically do things for so long, and then your body starts to say, hey, you can't do this anymore, and then you require help. So babies, divorce, caregiving, illness, downsizing, upsizing, kids moving in, kids moving out, kids moving back in with other kids, younger kids versus older kids, grandbabies. So they're often much more than just cleaning. They're about transitioning, restoring peace, control, and giving everyone a fresh start. And there's nothing more satisfying, and I haven't worked on a deep cleaning in a while. That comes actually in August, September. But in any case, I haven't seen anything in a while that doesn't give me more satisfaction than doing a before and after of a total, this is what your house looked like before and this is what it looks like after, and you can smell the difference. The energy feels different, the homeowner feels different, the kids feel different, everything is in its place, and you just have this, right? Not necessarily just like that, but something similar. It's very satisfying to see the before and the after, and there's usually the biggest transformation when you're doing those types of cleanings. So sometimes, because of whatever's going on in their lives personally, taking on a deep cleaning can be daunting. Taking on for a homeowner, taking on a post-construction cleaning is daunting. They don't realize that they need to vacuum several times to get it up. They vacuum, wet, wipe, and dry. Vacuum, wet, wipe, and dry. It's a repeated process. And most homeowners don't know that. Helping someone get their house caught up when they're already overwhelmed is overwhelming to them. So they're not going to be able to facilitate, okay, what do I tackle first? A, B, C, D. They're just going to go, oh my gosh, this is just a lot, and I'm not going to be able to do that. And so they're just trying to regain control. And it's interesting to see the dynamics and the change after. Sometimes with a deep cleaning, they can maintain it. They've got a reset, they're back to normal and everything's good. But then, it's up and down. We have a lot of mental health stuff going on with society, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, some people can maintain it and some people can't. I often have felt that home ec should be brought back into the schools because we have a lot of people who went through the school system who don't have basic cooking skills, who don't have basic household skills. And we see it a lot. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that should be learned. So things to consider about what is my client truly looking for when they call. Usually and we all have learned this, right? When someone's calling, they're wanting to solve their problem right then and there. They're not wanting to wait for you to call them back at the end of the day or the following day or the following day. With the exception of your closed office hours, I would try to answer the phone if you can, even if you're inside a client's home. If you don't want your current client in their home listening to your conversation, step outside, say, I'll be right back. Get your notepad out of your apron, take a note, or type it into your notes on your phone. And that way, you can get them a price, get all their information, get the credit card, and all that stuff. And then there is always, how can I provide value beyond the cleaning itself? So there are other things that you can do. Would you like to get set up on a regular schedule? I have a couple monthly spots. I have a couple bi-weekly spots. This is what I think the price would be. And then, then they have to decide whether it can fit into their budget. Am I pricing deep cleans in a way that reflects an emotional and physical labor involved? Yes and no. I spoke to someone this morning who was charging 15 cents a square foot for a deep cleaning, and it was a 4-bedroom, 1-bath. It was on the East Coast, everything's compact, right? It was 1,300 square feet, but it was a 4-bedroom, 1-bath. So that's different than Texas size or even in Arizona size. So she was pricing it at 15 cents. I'm like, you're not making any money. You need to have a minimum. So we went over all of the protocols of that. And then there's hoarding cleanings. We're seeing a lot. It's almost an epidemic how much hoarding cleanings we are starting to see. And I don't know if it's the algorithms, and because I see it because of the industry I'm in, but we have a lot of hoarding issues going on right now. And a lot of people don't want to let that stuff go because they think they're going to recover from whatever it is, and they're not going to. So it's this whole battle of trying to meet in the middle to try to, make it sanitary for them. And then there are a lot of boundaries. And I see this with Home Glow. I don't know if you're inside that group. I'm not allowed to make comments, but I do stay in the group because there's lots of interesting things that go on in there. If you ever want to think that you're having a rough day, just go to Home Glow and you're like, oh my God, those poor people, those poor cleaners in there. I mean, it's bad. Home Glow is just like, because all the marketing is based for price, right? Every single attribute, every touch point in Home Glow is all based on price. They're marketing to people based on price. People are working them, trying to get their feet wet, trying to figure it out, and they're based on price too, but they're not a very high price. So there's this whole going back and forth like this, left and left, right, which way do I go? And you need to have clear boundaries. This is why I have the Contract and Clarity bundle. That move out cleaning contract has been used over 20,000 times. It has been to court dozens of times. I have won every single time when I've used that contract. And those boundaries are specific. Like we need, even though you're telling the client when you're signing them up over the phone, we need to have running water and electricity when we arrive. If you failure to have that will cause us to charge you for a show-up fee. And they're like, what? We showed up. We prepared, the cleaner went from their house to your house, prepared, ready to go to do the job, and you're not ready for the job to start. It's not their fault. They still need to get paid. So we charge you a show fee, and that is whatever the deposit is what we use as the show up fee. So we usually get a 50% deposit on day of booking to secure your spot on the schedule. And then the cleaning tech doesn't care because they're still getting paid regardless of if they do the job or not, right? So then if they get it together enough by the afternoon, if the cleaner still has time, the cleaner will go back and it starts again. They have to send another payment link. They have to give another 50% deposit. Not everyone's happy with those decisions, but I have learned along the way, it is not our fault. We did everything we were supposed to do on our end. It was the client who did not do anything on their end. And then, those are some of the boundaries that you need to have. Like, is the homeowner going to be present when you're doing the deep cleaning? Are they going to smoke the entire time because you are allergic to cigarette smoke? Does it need an ozone machine treatment before the deep cleaning because there's nobody living there and it has this really bad odor? There are so many variables that can happen with one-time cleaning. So just make sure that you are establishing what those boundaries are. If, you have a story about a premium deep cleaning or a life transition that changed the way you see your business, I would love to hear from you. Subscribe to Cleaning Business Life. It tells the algorithm we are worthy, and it'll actually show it to more and more people. So I would totally love and appreciate you doing that. And if this episode resonated with you, I highly recommend that you listen to episode 212. Your customers don't pay you for your hard work. And it's a mindset shift that needs to happen, and I think that you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Take care.